Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So today I wanted to do something fun. I wanted to go over all the terror zones. I wanted to do kind of like a ranking of all of the terror zones. The terror zones ranked, right? But as I went over the terror zones and I tried to figure out exactly how to rank the terror zones, I felt like I couldn't really rank them, just like generically and say that like this one is the best above all others. And no, because it doesn't really work that way. Everything kind of has its own little special places and their own little special like usefulnesses. And so as I compiled my list and as I actually kind of like worked at it, well, I made a really large Excel spreadsheet. And I want to bring it up on the screen for you guys right now. Why not? Let's go ahead and plop this up here. So we're going to start off with the Bloodmoor, which is the one at the top of the list right here, of course. The Bloodmoor is fire and cold immunities only. It has about 7 to 9 boss packs. The other issue with this particular zone is that it only has one super unique and pretty much no boss packs. Obviously, its ease of access is extremely good with an S tier ease of access. I mean, you literally just walk out of town and it's right there. However, the monster density is extremely poor in Bloodmoor to the point where the majority of the monsters seem to be focused around the edges of the map. So if you are going to try and farm Bloodmoor, you are most likely going to want to farm around the edges of the map. The experience in Bloodmoor also seems to be pretty bad, but not as bad as some other zones. And if you farm the elite packs quickly with a fast character, you can usually do okay. But the main issue with Bloodmoor is that everything is spread out. Everything is, just all over the place. This does make for a rather awkward situation. Cold Plains and the Cave kind of needs to be separated into two different zones. So the cave is pretty much just like the pit. If you guys have been running the pit for a very long period of time in terror zones, the pit is a very nice place to magic find, and the cave, when it's terrorized, is pretty much identical to the pit. There's really not much to be said there. Cold Plains itself, however, is rather like low on density, and it doesn't really do very well. There's a lot of fallen, there's a lot of little weakling monsters, and they are very spread out. And in general, the cold plains in the cave isn't going to give you that much. Not much EXP, and the monster density is going to be terrible. So you're going to be running around trying to find those packs. Ease of access, of course, it's extremely easy to find cold plains because there's a waypoint in cold plains that takes you right there. Burial Grounds, the Crypt of the Mausoleum. This one is a little odd because it is 3 areas. And of course, we do have the super unique Blood Raven. It is not very easy to find. As you can see, I've rated it at ease of access D. And the monster density is also rated at a D. And the experience is rated at a D. In general, the Burial Grounds, the Crypt, and the Mausoleum are just very poor places to go for EXP and monster density. It's also a zone that you have to find. You can, of course, go to the Cold Plains waypoint, but there are 2 different directions that will lead you to 2 different zones, either Stony Field or Burial Grounds. And once you find the correct zone, then you're there. You can kill Blood Raven. You can go farm Bonebreaker, who's inside the crypt. But the crypt and the mausoleum are also not really particularly great places in terms of density. They have rather poor monster density, and the doors and all the walls and everything in the way make it just a rather poor zone for farming EXP. Now, granted, you can go in there and you can farm for items. Obviously, when they're TZ'd, all monsters, if you're in a high level zone, can drop everything. All TC 87 class items. So, at the very least, you can use it for magic finding. And if it is the TZ for that particular hour, it's a decent place to go magic find. If you have teleport and you can find it relatively quickly, it's okay. Um, it's not exactly the best place in the world. In fact, it's one of the worst ranked as far as I'm concerned TZs in the game. Well, right up there with Bloodmoor and Den of Evil. In fact, I would probably rather do Bloodmoor Den of Evil than I would do Burial Grounds and Crypt. Stony Field is a little bit better than Cold Plains, and the reason why is because it has a more diverse monster population. And you also have the Rakanishu, of course, and you can also go get the leg in Tristram if you want to, so you can pop a cow level later. This one's not terrible. It's definitely better than some of the previous ones that we've talked about, and that's why I ranked it a C in experience, a C in monster density, and of course S in ease of access because of course it has a waypoint that takes you directly there. Darkwood also has a super unique in the form of Treehead Woodfist, and it's pretty much identical to Stony Field in most ways. The only real difference is that Darkwood does have a little bit better density, and it seems like just in general a little bit better EXP as well. So like when you're speaking of Stony Field versus Darkwood, Darkwood definitely seems to be the superior one over Stony Field. The Forgotten Tower is an interesting one because it is full of ghosts. However, I don't really find it to be very good in terms of EXP, and it also seems to be pretty poor in terms of monster density as well. It does have a B rank for ease of access because sometimes it is right by the waypoint in Darkwood, Black Marsh, and sometimes it is right by the waypoint, or is not right by the waypoint in Black Marsh, and so like occasionally you will find it right away, and occasionally you won't. I do find that Forgotten Tower is good for runes if you want to farm runes because there's a lot of ghosts in there. And just in general, if you farm those ghosts, you can get some pretty nice rune drops. I don't really think it's a great one for EXP or monster density, though. Although when it is Forgotten Tower, the main goal, of course, is to farm the Countess, right? Well, the other interesting thing here is that ease of access in terms of the Countess is also a B rank because it takes you quite a while to get to her. You've got to, number one, go to the Black Marsh waypoint. Number two, find the tower, which can sometimes be a pain in the butt and sometimes is super easy. Then you need to find level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and then finally you can kill the Countess. So it's not as easy as something, like finding Pindleskin or killing Eldritch the Rectifier. So it definitely gets a B rank in terms of ease of access. The next one on the list is Jail, and Jail has got a C in experience and a C in monster density. And the reason why I rank this one so low is just because it really just doesn't have good monster density. A lot of the times you'll run around the jail and it feels like there's nothing in there, and I don't know why. There are 3 levels to the jail, and there is a lot to go through relatively quickly. You have doors and dead ends and all sorts of other stupid things in here, which make it a little bit difficult to actually get good progress here. It does have a lot of ghosts, which is good for the rune drops, but in general, it just tends to be kind of like one of the poorer TZs in the game. It does have an S for ease of access, though, because, of course, you can get there a multitude of ways. You can get there, obviously, number 1, by taking the jail waypoint. Number 2, you could also take the inner cloister waypoint, which has a stairwell directly next to it that takes you down into jail level 3. So you can either approach it from the top or the bottom. There are definitely a couple different ways you could approach the jail. Cathedral and Catacombs. The Cathedral and the Catacombs gets a B rank for me in terms of EXP and monster density. It is better than the jail, but it also still has a lot of dead ends, and it also has a lot of dead spaces in it. In fact, I've traveled for quite some time in the Catacombs without finding monsters, and it's really weird. And all of the dead ends also cause a lot of issues with getting you your EXP. When it comes to EXP, you're looking for big, dense packs of monsters. You're looking for, ease of access. You're looking for the ability to kill them in quick succession. And although Catacombs definitely does have a decent number of monsters, it also has some very deadly ones as well. The Taintids, especially when they spawn with Conviction or Extra Fast or Multi-Shot, can obliterate you off the face of the map. Now, we also have, of course, 2 super uniques here. We've got Bone Ash, who's in the Cathedral, and we have Andariel, who's at the end of the tunnel, essentially in Catacombs level 4. Andariel does get a nice boost in drops from this, and it's a nice little icing at the end of the cake. And that's why Cathedral and Catacombs at least got a B rank here from me. As far as ease of access goes, there are multiple ways that you can access these. You can take the inner cloister waypoint to start from the Cathedral, or you can start from Catacombs level 2 and teleport down to Andariel. It definitely has a very easy access here. However, I was very tempted to bring it down from an S rank to an A rank, just simply because, well, it's not always easy to find Andariel unless you're using map pack programs. And, and that may be what you're farming specifically when this is on TZ, is, you might be farming TZ Andariel. The pit is a B rank all across the board. It's not exactly the easiest to find. Sometimes it can be a pain in the butt. Sometimes it's right there in front of you as you come out of the waypoint in Outer Cloister. But it's definitely not as easy as some of these other ones for sure. That you can literally just walk through a waypoint and bam, you're there. So a little bit of a difference here. And then the pit is also just generally pretty good already in terms of finding items. So it's a small boost in terms of item findability. You basically go from farming the elites and champions only in the pit to farming everything in the pit. And it's a small change because most of the monsters in there seem to be elites or champions. Also, when it comes to the pit, the EXP doesn't seem to be as good, and the monster density doesn't seem to be as great. There's also a lot of dead ends in there that just kind of just end off into little campfires and things like that. So you do a little bit of exploring to actually find everything. And then, of course, there's level 2, which you have to find and kill the monsters in level 2 as well. In general, I think the pit just generally tends to be one of those ones that's better for magic finding and not quite as good for the EXP. Tristram, I gave a C in experience because there's just so few monsters there, and you spend most of your time loading. You spend most of your time loading in between the games that you're creating, because you're going to be creating a lot of games with Uber Tristram and things like that. You're also going to be just in general, not really killing a lot of monsters. You've got to load into the game. You've got to load into Stony Field. Of course, if you have somebody teleporting, you load directly into Tristram, but you have to load into Tristram through the portal and then kill everything and then load out and then load back in, and there's just a lot of loading screens, and so the EXP just doesn't seem to be very good. As far as monster density goes, I gave it a D rank because just in general, it just doesn't really have a lot of monsters at all. I mean, like per square foot, it probably has a pretty decent amount of monsters, but overall, if you compare it to like any other zone, it just doesn't really have a good number. You end up killing Griswold, a champion pack, maybe a couple elites, and then you're done. Ease of access, I gave it an A rank because, number one, it's not directly next to a waypoint, but usually you can find it pretty easy, and it has to do with the fact that when the portal is active, it puts the portal on the map. So you don't necessarily even have to find it directly. Just get close enough to it that the portal will appear on the minimap. And once the portal appears on the minimap, you've got it. Which makes it a lot easier to find than some other places. Moving on to Act 2, we have the first one on the list, which is Lut Gholein Sewers. Now, Lut Gholein Sewers is an amazing zone, and if you haven't given Lut Gholein Sewers a try, I would definitely recommend Lut Gholein Sewers because, number one, it has an S tier in terms of its EXP gain. It has an S tier in terms of its monster density, and it also has an S tier in terms of its ease of access, because there are literally three different ways that you can access sewers. You can access it, number one, up by the door, the trap door next to the Merc vendor. You can access it another way through the entrance down by Mashif's boat. And then on top of that, you can also take the jail waypoint the Lut Gholein Sewers waypoint if you want to, which is going to take you a little bit further down. The monsters tend to spawn in these really tight packs because there's not much space in Lut Gholein Sewers. Everything is very linear. Everything is very straight or, very small rooms. And so a lot of the times you end up in these little tiny rooms with tons of monsters that can all be killed relatively quickly by spells like Nova or Freezing Arrow or Lightning Javelins. Doesn't really matter because the monsters are so nice and tightly packed for you that it literally just only takes one or two swings of a sword or one or two shots of a bow or one or two casts of a spell and everything falls down, which is absolutely great. And I think you'll find that if you give Lut Gholein Sewers a chance, it's a pretty sweet one. Next on the list is Rocky Waste and Stony Tomb. Now, Rocky Waste and Stony Tomb are two different zones, obviously, but Stony Tomb has a lot of density. There are pretty good elite packs in there. It is, of course, multiple levels, and it has pretty decent density, as well as the fact that Rocky Waste is obviously very easy to find, since you literally just walk out of the door. And Stony Tomb is often extremely easy to find as well, but can sometimes be a little bit of a pain in the butt depending on where it spawns. Dry Hills and Halls of the Dead is actually a pretty decent one too, and I definitely would rank that the availability or the ease of access of Dry Hills and Halls of the Dead is extremely easy. Number one, you have a waypoint that goes directly to Halls of the Dead, and number two, you can also just simply go to Dry Hills. So you can either do one or the other. Now, usually what I like to do, I go to the Halls of the Dead waypoint, I clear out Halls of the Dead, and then I go down to level 1, clear out Halls of the Dead level 1, and then leave, and then do Dry Hills. It's easier for me to take the waypoint and go that way. Far Oasis is actually kind of meh. I rank it on a B as far as the experience and a B on the density. Although it does have an S for ease of access because, of course, there's a waypoint that takes you directly there. It does have a fair, decent amount of beetles, but overall, I find it to be very spread out, and a lot of the monsters just kind of like all over the place. Kind of reminiscent of, unfortunately, Bloodmoor. Lost City and Claw Viper Temple, I gave a B rank in terms of ease of access because although Lost City does have a waypoint in it, Claw Viper Temple is often a pain in the butt to find. Unless you want to just teleport around aimlessly and hopefully find it. But it's about the same difficulty to find freaking Claw Viper Temple as it is some of the other stupid zones like the pit. Sometimes you'll find it right away, and sometimes it'll be a pain in the butt, and you have no clue where it is. Doesn't make any sense. It kind of reminds me, again, also of like the Countess Tower, the Forgotten Tower. Sometimes you'll walk out of the waypoint and it's at least staring you in the face. And then other times you literally have to search the entire map to find the dang thing. And the other interesting thing here is that Lost City is halfway decent, and I really wish they had included Ancient Tunnels. And Claw Viper Temple is, again, halfway decent. Like, they're not like the best zones. They have decent density, and Claw Viper Temple does have a level 2, but there's only a couple monsters there. And there really is kind of like a diverse like population of resistances here. As you can clearly see, we've got fire, cold, lightning, poison, and magic damage immunities in this zone. And you know, this could put a hamper on some of the characters because there is a pretty decent amount of all of them. Arcane Sanctuary is an interesting one because I always thought it was going to be like super duper duper great. But as far as a EXP zone goes, it doesn't really do very well. I ranked it a B rank on the EXP scale, also a B rank on the density. And this is really just because although Arcane Sanctuary does have a pretty decent density in the area that you can actually, you know, fight the monsters on, like it's just that area. And so like when you actually spread out all the monsters that they give you and look at it in a more like realistic, you know, sort of like experience, it's not really as good of a monster density as it would seem. And what ends up happening is yeah, you kill a bunch of monsters, but you don't really get a lot of EXP for it. And they kind of like once they group up in one spot, you kill them, and then you notice there's like nothing after them because, well, all of the monsters in that zone concentrated on you, and that's why it seems like there's really good density. But then you realize that, yeah, there's not really a lot of monsters in the zone, like overall, by comparison to like some of the other zones. Like if we were to compare this to Lut Gholein Sewers, Lut Gholein Sewers has a really large density. I mean, you go from one room to the next, and there's just tons of monsters in every single room that you go to. Whereas in Arcane Sanctuary, sometimes you'll go to a platform and there'll just be nothing on it at all. When you'll go to another platform and there'll be nothing on it. And then all of a sudden there's like a whole bunch of monsters on this one platform, and then you go to the next one and it's like meh, and then finally you find that last ending spot in Arcane Sanctuary, and sometimes there'll be a bunch of monsters on the platform, but then again sometimes there's none. Another interesting tip about Arcane Sanctuary that I'll give you guys is if you're leveling to 99, the lightning spires are worth a lot of EXP. Definitely kill the lightning spires. As far as ease of access, of course, Arcane Sanctuary is super easy to access because there is a waypoint right there in the frickin' zone, and it basically puts you dead center between all four directions. Tal Rasha's Tomb, the last one on the Act 2 list. Tal Rasha's Tomb is an amazing one. I actually really like Tal Rasha's Tomb. There is a lot of monsters. The density is extremely high. The ease of access is definitely S tier because literally all the temples are in the same exact place. There's a waypoint that takes you straight into the Canyon of the Magi. You just walk in any direction and there's a tomb. And there are tons of monsters to kill in these tombs. Everything varying from ghosts to skeletons to Urdars to Haradrim, beetles. I mean, you name it, it's in there. And there's so many nice zones that you can go to that you spend a lot less time loading in loading screens, like with Tristram, for instance, and a lot more time killing things and having fun. Also, as far as items go, Tal Rasha's Tomb is actually really good for items as well because there's tons of monsters there that can drop tons of good loot, as well as tons of clickables, like urns and frickin' tombs. And these urns and tombs can literally drop every single item in the game when they're under the Terror Zone list. So that's pretty freaking awesome. Moving on to Act 3. This is the act that I think most people dislike, and it doesn't really have a lot of good zones, I'm going to be honest. As far as zones go, it's not really doing the greatest. The Spider Forest and Spider Cavern zone is pretty bad. Number one, Spider Cavern is really difficult to find in general. You will often go through the zone just wandering aimlessly, and sometimes you won't even find the stupid Spider Cavern before you end up in Great Marsh or Flayer Jungle or any of the above, and it's just a pain in the butt to actually find the Spider Cavern. I kind of wish they'd done a Arachnid layer instead, but I can see why they went with a different choice. Spider Forest itself has a very low density, and it's just a very poor place in general as far as I'm concerned. That's why I ranked it a B in experience and a D in monster density, as well as a D in ease of access. And you might be thinking, well, why did I rate it a D in ease of access when it's literally Spider Forest and there's a Spider Forest waypoint? Well, because there's tons of dead ends. The monsters are spread out all over the place. You can't find the Spider Cavern to save your life. Like, the zone itself is just terrible in terms of ease of access. Even when you're there, you're having a difficult time with the ease of access part of it. Now, it's interesting because the Flayer Jungle and Flayer Dungeon tend to be a lot better than the Spider Forest and the Spider Cavern. The experience points in Flayer Jungle were way better, and the monster density was way better, as well as the ease of access in Flayer Jungle is the same as Spider Cavern and Spider Forest, but at least you've got a lot of monsters to kill while you're doing it. Now, I don't necessarily like the ease of access in these zones, but Flayer Dungeon is actually pretty nice if you can find it, whereas Spider Cavern, not as much. If you find Flayer Dungeon and you are one of the characters that doesn't have a huge issue with dolls, I actually had a lot of fun going through Flayer Dungeon because the density in Flayer Dungeon was actually pretty amazing in levels 1 and 2. However, when you get to level 3, the density just simply like drops through the floor. I'm not really sure what's going on in level 3, but there's like no monsters in level 3 just about, and there's only one super unique there. And the whole place is a maze, so in general, if you do farm Flayer Jungle and Flayer Dungeon for TZ Zone EXP, just avoid level 3 on the Flayer Dungeon. Just save yourself the time and move on. Kurast Bazaar, Ruined Temple, and Disused Fane. The Kurast Bazaar was a rather poor one, and I ranked it a D on experience and a D on monster density. There are a lot of monsters there, but they're very spread out across a very large area. And on top of this, they tend to be focused around the edges of the map. And I'm not exactly sure why they tend to be focused around the edges of the map, but they are. Now, the Ruined Temple and the Disused Fane, which are also part of this zone, are actually a hell of a lot better than the Kurast Bazaar itself. And it's actually kind of interesting to think about it this way, is that you actually would get a lot better EXP and a lot better just items in general by avoiding the Bazaar and farming the Ruined Temple and the Disused Fane. But the problem with this is that they're more difficult to find than the Kurast Bazaar itself. Obviously, you can just take the waypoint, which is super duper easy. And, that's great for Kurast Bazaar, but you don't want to go to Kurast Bazaar because it's kind of garbage EXP. What you do want to do is go to the Ruined Temple and the Disused Fane, and that means you got to find them. And that would take the S rank down to honestly more like a B rank, in my opinion. Just simply because you're not really focused on getting to the area itself, but the temples within the area. Kurast Sewers is by far one of the worst zones in the game. Definitely way down there on the list with the frickin' burial grounds, and it's really because not only does it have horrible ease of access, because number one, there's no waypoint that takes you directly to the sewers, although you can take any of the city waypoints and then find the sewers. Number two, there's tons of dead ends, tons of like just blank space inside of this zone. You will often have trouble finding monsters. Like you will literally just be walking and not find monsters for quite some time. And that density and the dead ends and the terrible kind of structure of the sewers makes it a very poor zone for just about everything. The ease of access, the monster density, and the experience points that you gain from Kurast Sewers are just terrible. And then on top of that, the monsters that are in the sewers are very, very deadly. The bats can be extremely deadly if they spawn with the right modifiers. Obviously, the dolls can be extremely deadly as well. And on top of that, there are also Haradrim in here, which means that when you kill the dolls, or the dolls die and explode and, kill you, the Haradrim can bring them back to life so they can kill you again, which is just all kinds of terrible. Now, when I was on my journey to level 99, any TZ was a good TZ. And even when I was farming Kurast Sewers because I had no other choice, I hated it. Travincal got some pretty harsh rankings from me. I brought it down to an A in EXP, and actually, you know what? I think I need to bring it down to a B in EXP. The density of the zone, I give a D, and the ease of access is an S, of course, because there is literally a waypoint directly in Travincal. Now, the reason why I rate Travincal so poorly is because, well, there really is not a lot of monsters in Trav. Even if you kill the entire council and all the monsters in the zone, it's kind of just a waste of time. I often found myself only killing the council and any monsters that were directly around the council, because chasing down all of the monsters that would run away from you, by the way, was just a pain in the butt. And on top of that, they tend to be very spread out all over the map, like in the corners, just in every kind of orifice that they can hide away from, you generally. The EXP was decent if you focused mainly on Trav, on the actual council themselves, and you basically just loaded in, killed the Trav, left, loaded in, killed Trav Council, left, loaded in, killed Trav Council, left. But you spent a lot of time in the actual loading screen, and a lot of the time that you were actually doing Trav runs was just simply wasted. Now, Durance of Hate was an interesting one, and I had a hard time ranking this one, just simply because Durance of Hate is such a strange zone. Obviously, you have Mephisto at the end, which is great, and he also has some council members, but getting to him is a little bit difficult. The zone itself is decent in terms of EXP, and the density of the zone is, of course, very nice, but overall, you generally don't want to actually go through Durance of Hate level 1, 2, and 3, to actually get to 3. In general, you just kind of want to do 3 because the other 2 levels are just, they're just a pain in the butt. Dolls everywhere, and quite honestly, even the Urdars are pretty deadly in certain situations if they have the right modifiers. And there's just a lot of dead ends, there's a lot of dead space. As far as clickables go, there's tons of clickables in the Durance, and if you do want to run around like a crackhead using telekinesis on clickables, it's kind of an interesting option, but it's just too deadly down there. So I gave it a C as far as ease of access goes, because I think the majority of the people, when they run Durance when it's terrorized, are generally running level 3 only, which means that you're killing all the monsters, essentially, everything that is in Durance level 3, including, of course, Mephisto, his council members, and any elites or regular monsters that might be there. And it does take a teleporting sorceress or a teleporting character of some kind to find Durance of Hate. And unfortunately, due to Durance of Hate's kind of a little bit of randomness, sometimes you'll find it right away, and sometimes it will take some time, which is why I rated a C rank. Now, I did find it to be very nice on level 3 in terms of monster density, and the EXP was pretty decent, but you did spend a lot of time in the loading screens, which is why I ranked it a B rank. Act 4 Terror Zones. So this is getting into the higher level stuff, and the first one on the list is Outer Steppes and Plains of Despair. Now, I really feel like I need to separate these two, because Plains of Despair is a gloam-filled hot garbage tank that is just terrible. Outer Steppes is just a Act 4 zone. Like, there's nothing too special about it. It's got pit lords, it's got the general fanfare for Act 4 zones, and no gloams, which makes Outer Steppes an A rank in terms of its accessibility. And the reason why I didn't give it an S rank is because, well, it's tied together with Plains of Despair, which you have to find. In terms of monster density, it has a pretty decent monster density at B rank. I'm not going to give it anything more than that because the monsters do tend to be spread out a lot. It also has a lot of grotesques, and the grotesques don't give you EXP, the little babies. They don't give you any EXP. So they're just endless spawns, and as much as I like endless spawns for my Necromancer when I'm corpse exploding, they don't really do you very good when you're actually trying to kill things and have fun. As far as the EXP that you get from there, it's decent at a B rank. River of Flame and City of the Damned. This is an interesting combination because City of the Damned is actually a pretty decent farming spot, and so is River of Flame, although they both have spawners. And I actually didn't rank this one for some reason, and I'm going to go ahead and rank it right now. As far as EXP goes, I always felt like it was pretty much in the B rank category. Both of these guys have spawners that give no EXP, so again, it is in the B rank category. And as far as ease of access goes, I don't think you can get any easier than a City of the Damned waypoint and a River of Flame waypoint, which makes it the S rank. Chaos Sanctuary is by far one of the best zones for Terrorize in the game. It is S rank in all categories. You get amazing EXP in Chaos Sanctuary. It is extremely easy to find, of course, because it is always located in the same exact place. You don't even need teleport. You can just use a teleport staff, and you can get to Chaos relatively easy. The only detriment to finding Chaos, in my opinion, if you don't have teleport, is getting through the causeway, which can sometimes be a pain in the butt due to the way that it's constructed. As far as the monster density goes, Chaos tends to be extremely good with monster density. Although I have seen a couple times that I've gone through Chaos that it's been kind of weird. Like there's not a lot of monsters in there, and I don't know why. But for the most part, the density tends to be really nice. There's quite a few super uniques in Chaos, of course, and I don't even really need to tell you. If you've played any of the Terror Zones at any point, even if you've played Diablo at any point, you know that Chaos Sanctuary is a very good zone for farming items as well as EXP. Moving on to Act 5. Act 5 is the last on the list, and we have Bloody Foothills to start it out with Cavern and Shank the Overseer. Now, I gave it a B rank in terms of EXP because the monsters are really spread out, and some of them tend to run away from you, as well as the fact that we have some pretty deadly monsters in here, too. A lot of the Spear Cats and the Fire Archers love to spawn in Bloody Foothills, and it's a pain in the butt. As far as monster density goes, again, I gave it a B rank because the monsters tend to be spread out pretty far. As though ease of access is an S rank because, quite honestly, you can just take the Frigid Highland waypoint or walk out of Heracroth, and you're obviously there. Now, you can obviously just farm Shank over and over again. I think that's the easiest thing to do with this zone if you really want to get a decent amount of EXP, is that you basically just take the Frigid Highlands waypoint, go down, kill Shank, all his little minions around him, look to the left, look to the right, find any elite or champions that are nearby, kill those guys too, and if you really want to, you can teleport down and kill Cavern, who's in the middle of the map, but for the most part, when this is a TZ, I think the best thing to do is just to farm Shank over and over again. Frigid Highlands is very similar. Frigid Highlands has several super uniques. You have Eldritch the Rectifier, Sharptooth Slayer, and Ibak the Unleashed. Now, the zone itself is pretty terrible. I gave it an A rank in terms of EXP, and I'll tell you why about that later. A C rank in terms of density, because it's absolutely terrible in terms of density. And an S rank in terms of ease of access, of course, because there's literally a waypoint that takes you right there. And it's right by Eldritch the Rectifier. So the technique that I use for this zone to get that A rank EXP is to use a baseball diamond technique. If you guys have ever seen a baseball diamond is, of course, a diamond shape. And what you want to do is you want to take home base and you want to put it right on top of Eldritch's head. And you want to take a baseball diamond approach to killing all the monsters within that baseball diamond. You will often find Sharptooth the Slayer, the other super unique within that baseball diamond, and you will find quite a few champion packs and elite packs within that diamond as well. Never stray too far from the diamond, though. If you do, you're just going to be wasting your time. You do a very quick kill Eldritch, move over here, kill everything this way, move this way, kill everything this way, move this way, kill everything this way, and then leave, make a new game, and rinse repeat. And this actually works surprisingly well for Frigid Highlands. You can do it in single player, or you can do it with your friends, as long as they are loading in before Eldritch dies. Glacial Trail is an interesting one, and as much as I enjoy doing Glacial Trail, Crystalline Passage, and Ancient Sway, these are all, honestly, in my opinion, pretty much the same zones. Glacial Trail gets a B rank in terms of EXP and a B rank in terms of monster density. Although there is some pretty nice dense areas in the zone, there's also a lot of dead space too, and a lot of dead ends as well. And ease of access, of course, it gets an S rank because it is, of course, Glacial Trail, which you can literally just waypoint into. Crystalline Passage and Frozen River get their own ranking of B, B, and A. The reason why I ranked Frozen River, or rather Crystalline Passage and Frozen River, at an A rank instead of an S rank is because you have to find Frozen River. So if you're specifically trying to go into Crystalline Passage for a TZ, you're probably going to be doing Frozen River, and you're going to have to find it at some point. Frozen River also has gloams in it, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt if you don't have good lightning resistances. And in general, the monster density in Crystalline Passage, as well as Glacial Trail, tends to be just kind of like wonky. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, and that means the EXP is sometimes good and sometimes bad. Arreat Plateau gets a D rank across the board for me. You might be saying to yourself, well, why did Arreat Plateau get a D rank when it has a waypoint that takes you directly to it? Because even when you're there, traversing Arreat Plateau, especially without teleport, is just a pain in the butt. The monsters are all cordoned off in these little rooms. There's doors everywhere that you've got to break. There's barricades. I mean, it's a huge zone that everything is spread out all over the place. And the ease of access, honestly, for Arreat Plateau is just terrible because it was designed that way. It was designed to be a siege zone. It was designed to be a place where they're trying to slow you down as much as possible. Well, guess what? It worked. They slowed me down. Okay. Nihlathak's Temple is another one that is pretty nice. It's I like to rank it an A in terms of EXP, although it's not really up there with Arcane Sanctuary. It's pretty darn good. The monsters change a lot down there, which I think is part of the issue. Sometimes it's the really good monsters that give really good EXP and are really easy to kill, and sometimes it's the harder monsters that are a lot more difficult to kill and give you crappier EXP. It's definitely S tier in terms of monster density. There just seems to be so many monsters down there that you'll spend a lot of time just hunting them down and killing them because there's just all these interconnecting passageways, and every time you enter a new passageway, there's another big group of monsters. And if you're not careful, sometimes you can end up with all of them on you at the same time, which can be pretty deadly. Ease of access, of course, it's super easy to access Nihlathak's Temple and of course the actual room where Nihlathak is in, because number one, you can go through the Pendle Portal. Number two, you can go through the Waypoint, and number three, the way to Nihlathak is a way that has been well known for a very long time. I have videos up on it. If you want to learn the way to Nihlathak, there are literally only 3 variations to the map, and I can get you there every single time with ease. Ancient Sway and Icy Cellar is pretty much the same as Crystalline Passage and Frozen River. There are also glooms in Icy Cellar. However, Icy Cellar is a lot smaller than Frozen River, so you get a lot less density down there. Although there is a pretty nice amount of elites and champions in that zone. It's a tiny little zone by comparison to Frozen River. It's a lot like Tristram. So it's like Ancient Sway plus like a Tristram that has evil gnomes that want to murder your soul. So I gave Ancient Sway and Icy Cellar, again, a B rank in EXP and a B rank in monster density, and an A rank in ease of access because, again, you have to actually find the Icy Cellar within Ancient Sway, which you will do as you're, EXPing. But due to the dead ends and other things, there's going to be a lot of backtracking. And I think that's the biggest issue with Ancient Sway, Crystalline Passage, and Glacial Trail is that you end up backtracking a lot when you hit these dead ends. Then finally, we have Worldstone Keep, Throne of Destruction, and of course, Bale himself. Now, Bale doesn't actually get any bonuses from the Terror Zone because he's already really high level. So Bale himself is just, he's just the same old Bale that you've always known and loved. Now, Lister, Ventar, Bartuk, Akmel, and Kalenzo the Annihilator are all the waves. Those are the Bale waves. And those are actually all going to get the very nice TZ bonus buff, and of course they're going to give you a really nice EXP. In general, Worldstone Keep and Throne of Destruction are amazing for EXP. The monster density is on point. There are tons and tons of monsters everywhere. They have beetles, which are excellent EXP, zombies, freaking Haradrim, Gloams, and of course there's also dolls in the throne room as well. And although it is extremely deadly in the Worldstone in level 2 and in the throne, it is worth killing literally everything in the Worldstone if you have a good group. You just basically barrel through and murder everything in the zone, clicking on everything on your way, because God knows I found so many jaws and freaking random Zod runes and stuff from just like jars and tombs down there. It's insane. Like we just barrel through Worldstone and we get so much EXP along the way. And of course the waves give you very nice EXP, and we clear out the throne, and then we usually murder Bale with extreme prejudice. And as far as ease of access goes, Worldstone is definitely one of the easier ones because you literally just take a waypoint that takes you directly to Worldstone. Now, if you're trying to find Bale's throne room specifically, that can sometimes be a pain in the butt. But when we run Worldstone, we don't tele straight to Bale. We run the entire Worldstone and we burn everything on the way. I mean, giant packs of soul killers dead in like a half a second. The sheer density and the speed at which you can kill things down in Worldstone is absolutely amazing. And this list is one that I put together over a little while, and I wanted to wait because I felt like if I made this list at the beginning, before everybody got a feeling for these zones, I wouldn't be able to give you the best information. But I feel like this is a little bit better in terms of information because I can give you more detailed experiences of what I've gone over as I level to 99 through the season. And if I had to pick my top 3 zones, like bar none, it would definitely be Chaos Sanctuary, Worldstone Keep, and my other absolute favorite that I always like to farm is Lut Gholein Sewers. Believe it or not, Lut Gholein Sewers was definitely up there. Moo Farm, on the other hand, it was interesting to see it pop up, but the problem with Moo Farm was that it just didn't really have very good EXP, and I can't even remember if I went over Moo Farm, but let's go over it real quick just as a secret zone at the end, shall we? So Moo Farm has been nerfed for EXP a long time ago. This was before Terror Zones, and I'm pretty sure it still is nerfed for EXP. Obviously, Moo Farm has extremely good density, has that S tier monster density that you just can't compete with. Its ease of access is a B rank because, of course, you do have to actually go get the leg before you can spawn it. So it's not like you could just load in and immediately walk to a waypoint and go straight to it. You've got to load in, go to Stony Field, find the Tristram portal, and then get the leg. Then come back to town, then make the portal. And so I'm rating it a B rank because it's not as easy as a lot of these other zones. As far as experience goes, though, it was my experience that I found that Moo Farm was actually one of the worst places for EXP, because it still seems to be under that EXP penalty from long ago. Now, granted, the monster levels was much increased from, obviously the level 81 that it normally is, so they're level 96 monsters. But at the same time, they just didn't really give a really large amount of EXP as I was leveling to 99. And I often found that Lut Gholein Sewers was a far superior zone in terms of EXP output. And of course, Chaos and Worldstone were way, way, way better. I think that's pretty much it. And I didn't want to make this video like freaking an hour long, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.